My Hero Academia Season 4, Episode 4. So this is a great episode, a clean adaptation of chapters 129 and 130. A lot of tense moments, a lot of info, and a huge revelation in the latter part of this episode. So let's get into it. So we see Deku and Mirio patrolling, and they're just straight up by themselves, which is not typical because usually we'll see like interns patrolling with like another pro hero, but it's okay for them because Mirio is like basically a pro hero. I mean, even Aizawa says that he's basically like would be number one amongst them, so it's fine. And we also find out that like Bubble Girl and Night Eye are kind of just doing their own little reconnaissance thing on the side. So we're also finding out Mirio's hero name, and it's Lemillion, because he wants to save like at least 1 million people. And that's cool. But something that they exclude from the episode is that Mirio also likens his name to the band Remio Remen. I don't know. It's a Japanese alt-rock band from the aughts. And I guess they excluded it from the anime because like the viewer base probably has no idea who they are, since they were probably born around that time. So, I mean, I guess this is probably more insight to like Horikoshi and the band that he liked at that time, when he was growing up possibly, but it's just something. It's not like it matters. And then by chance, of course, they just encounter Eri, and Eri is the girl that we see heavily featured in the end credits. And they also meet Chisaki at this point, who they're finally encountering for the first time. And he's like, been built up in these last 2 episodes as essentially being the main villain of this season. So then we see Mirio knock Izuku's mask over his face. And this is pretty much the first time that he's put on the mask of his new costume, ever since it was altered after he got it when he first met Gran Torino, because we saw it was damaged in his fight, his first fight with Bakugo when they were in that little training scenario. And then it was altered, they said, to make it look cooler, because I mean, while it was cute and everything, it was kind of corny, the original design that he had. And I think that was just showing, him being very sophomoric when we first see him, first joining UA. So this is just some growth to him. But this is pretty much the first and last time we're going to see him with this mask on. Now, also, they don't show, what it fully looks like, because, the chin, jaw, mouth guard thing that he has, he never fully puts it on. Now, Horikoshi actually does show us what it actually fully looks like in the volume that this chapter is released in. So I'll put it up here. This is what it looks like. So yeah, it's kind of cool, but don't get your hopes up. We're never going to see it again. So Mirio's, he's trying to play it cool this whole time because he doesn't want them to find out that they're a part of Night Eye's agency, because that would ruin the whole big operation that they're going on here. And then I like that Mirio asks Chisaki about his mask, because it is a very odd mask for you to just be wearing, even if you are a part of the Hasakai, as he mentions. And he's like, oh, don't mind the mask, it keeps out the filth. And it's like, yeah, that's typical for Asian countries, them to wear those face masks in case they are sick and they don't want other people to get sick, or they just don't want to breathe in whatever they feel is a toxic air. But you're wearing this very suspicious villain looking plague mask, but whatever. So then they're suspicious of Eri and how she's acting, especially towards Chisaki. And then he's like, let's go into the alley. I don't want anybody to hear about this because it's too personal or whatever. And then we see him start to take off his glove. And then as soon as he starts to do this, Eri notices and she runs to him. So this is obviously, because once he takes off his glove, then he's free to use his quirk. Because we saw in the last 2 episodes, when he destroyed Magna, that he needed to make contact with his skin to do it. So he was definitely going into killing mode, and this is also noted by Mirio later on. So then it cuts to Night Eye and Bubble Girl, and we see them doing their reconnaissance on the base of the Hasakai. And just remember that base, the whole big door and the walls and everything, because it's very important. It's going to be prominent for the rest of this arc. So then we go back to the inside of that place, and we see what Chisaki's doing, and he has his goon with him, and then one goon's like, oh, I'm sorry that she got away, because she originally just left the place. That's how she ran into Deku and Mirio, and then he just one-hand splatters him. So that's further showing that his quirk is insane. All he needs to do is just essentially touch you, and you will explode. Very cool how they did it. They didn't restrain too much. It was very graphic. But then we see him taking Eri to this lab chair thing, and then we also see Chrono, his assistant dude with the white cape, undoing her bandages. So this is giving us some insight into why she's wearing the bandages, and what the purpose that she has for Chisaki. He's doing some kind of experiments on her, and she is essentially being dissected some way. I mean, we don't know too much, so I can't give away too much, but yeah, there's some horrible stuff going on here with this little girl. Obviously, since she was so scared, and she didn't want to leave Izuku and Mirio. So, yeah. So then Mirio and Izuku meet up with Night Eye, and he starts talking to him about Chisaki being involved in a traffic accident, and there was no casualties. So we actually see this traffic accident. This is the first time that we actually saw Chisaki in the series at the end of Season 3, when he was standing in front of that burning car. And the Reservoir Dog Gang guys that we also see at the end of Season 3, like they're breaking out of that store when Twice is like monologuing to himself. We see that in the end result of that, burning car traffic accident at the end of Season 3, that those guys are like dismembered. Like their body parts are like a part of the wreckage. And we especially see that one big guy with like the yellow pointy nose. His head is just like completely attached to that tire on the ground. But now we're seeing that they're alive and they're back to normal. And like, apparently they've also been cured of like cavities and rheumatism and stuff, which is very interesting that his quirk is capable of doing that. But we're seeing more insight into his quirk. So not only can he splatter you, but he can bring you back together as well. Pretty broken. Now, I can't go too much into his quirk because it hasn't fully been explained yet. I'm going to make a video about it this week. But yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid, insane, powerful. Like, all he has to do is touch you. He can take you apart, bring you back together. It's insane. But then he did this so that there was no crime to accuse him of. So there you go. That was his motive for bringing them back together. So then we go back to school and we see Bakugo and Todoroki, and they're all beat up. They have bandages on their face. And this is because of their intense provisional license training that they're going under, because they failed the original provisional license exam in Season 3. And we're going to see what they're doing later on in the season. But it's going to be a while before we see that. It's going to be like episode, I don't know, like 17. I'm just taking a guess. I wonder if that turns out to be true. But we also see Izuku like not being able to focus in class because of all of the converging storylines affecting him simultaneously. And like he goes out to find All Might. We see that All Might's like jogging and training, I don't know, just to keep a handle on his health. And then Izuku tells All Might that he knows that One for All was supposed to go to Mirio first, and that was kind of like a big revelation to him, and he was offended that All Might didn't tell him this originally. And then we get the history of All Might and Night Eye being partners together, or sidekicks, and it happened for 5 years, which was 5 years before 6 years ago, so they were about together for like a little over 10 years, something like that, maybe 11 years. But 6 years ago is when they broke apart, and 6 years ago is significant because that's when he, had the big fight with All for One, when they both like went, crazy out against each other. They were both at the height of their powers, and they both essentially nerfed each other, and they like mortally wounded each other as well. And we're seeing for the first time the aftermath of that battle. Like, All Might was really messed up. Like, he was in the hospital, he couldn't even stand right, he was holding onto the walls. And I like the little exchange of dialogue that they're having right here between him and Night Eye. And we also see Gran Torino's back there. That's showing us that he was a part of that battle as well, because we saw that he was originally a part of the first like battle that we saw All for One a part of, like with Nana, like in the movie, and also sometimes in the flashbacks in the series. So he was always there. He was even there for like the last battle against All for One. So Gran Torino's a G till the end, but he was also 6 years ago still in his shrunken form. I want an explanation as to why Gran Torino went from being like a normal sized dude to just somehow being like 2 feet tall. I don't know why that is. Maybe it was a result of his battle with All for One. I don't know. I would just like some explanation on it. And then I really like this little exchange of dialogue right here when All Might's like, if I go, then who will be the symbol of peace? And then Night Eye's like, I know the importance of the symbol. I revere its function. I love that line because I feel the same way. It's like one of my favorite characteristics of All Might is like the symbol of peace that he's built. It's kind of like his goal in life. This is something that he's always wanted to make, and now he's been maintaining it for like, I don't know, 30 years or 20, however long. It's been a long time. So it's like something that he just can't let go of, especially since it's literally shaped the status quo of society, which is super interesting in itself. But then I like how he's like, I revere its function. It's like, I feel the same way, Night Eye. But then we're also seeing that Night Eye uses his future sight on All Might and foresees his death, which is tragic because this means that All Might is essentially going to die, unfortunately. And apparently, Night Eye's future sight is never wrong. But then he's like, I can change the future. I want to try to change the future. So that might mean that it can change. It might not mean that it changed. But it also, he specifically says that it's gruesome. So that's something interesting to look at. I'm going to make a video to this topic, like entirely dedicated to it, because it needs its own video. I can't discuss every single little detail about everything going into this here. But then we're also seeing that Night Eye's future sight quirk, it can see at least 7 years into the future, because he says that he looked 6 or 7 years into the future. And before this, we didn't know that. It only said that he can look an hour into the future, but now it's like he can go friggin' years into the future. But it gets more difficult to like see exactly what's happening the further he goes. So it turns out that All Might, according to this future sight vision, he's either going to die this year or the next. And we're coming close to the end of this year. So what's going to happen? I don't know. And then Izuku says, ask Night Eye to use his quirk on you again to confirm if the death prophecy is still going to happen or if it passed. Because, the whole battle that he had with All For One in Season 3, was that going to be it? Was it not going to be it? But then, All Might, it basically dodges the question, and it gets the point across where he's not going to ask him. So this is just leaving it up in the air. This is like Schrodinger's All Might for the whole fans here. Like, we're not going to know. We're going to have to guess. And, my personal guess is that, yeah, he's going to die. And it's just really going to affect us, at least affect me. All Might's my favorite character. And even though he is completely nerfed and he's never going to have his power back, it's still going to suck to see him go. So then we come to the end of the episode, and after the credits, we see Shigaraki meeting up with Chisaki again, because they... first time they met, you know, with Magda dying and everything. So now they're basically going to renegotiate their original terms of their little team-up thing that they're doing, their group joint venture, if you will. And then we see the next episode is going to feature Kirishima, Amajiki, and Fat Gum, and they're both doing their internship under that hero, Fat Gum, who we're going to be introduced to for the first time in that episode. But that's pretty much it for the review, guys. Let me know what you thought about it, and if you liked it, please give it a like. I also have a Patreon. It gives you access to a weekly Q&A, and if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.